top focus at this hour. Russian President Vladimir Putin convened a high-level meeting in Moscow just hours after his return from Alaska's summit with US President Donald Trump. Now, Putin briefed top officials on the key discussions that took place with the US President. He said talks centered around possible approaches to resolving the Ukraine conflict and on addressing the underlying causes of tensions between Moscow and the West. Now, the Russian president underlined that his government acknowledges and respects the stance of the American administration, adding that Alaska opened dialogue for further engagement. In fact, officials say that Kremlin will now work on charting the next steps from peace talks on Ukraine to possible cooperation in arms control.
Ambassador, does Zelensky have anything with him that could be used as a bargaining chip? Perhaps the Ukraine-United States mineral resource agreement, the minerals deal that was signed in April this year, could that be a bargaining chip? What does Zelensky have right now in order to ensure that terms of conditions of peace deal are in Ukraine's favor?
I think Zelensky has very few bargaining chips in his hand. One of them is the small parcel of land which reportedly Ukraine now controls in the Kursk region of Russia. But that apart, this mineral deal was thrown at President Zelensky in a take it or leave it. If you leave it, then the Americans will wash off their hands off this whole business and stop supplying everything that they had been doing. It was not only arms, it was aid in other forms, military training, etc., etc. So that was a very hard decision for President Zelensky to accept, but he did it. Now the point is that without American support and just banking on shaky European support, can President Zelensky continue with this war? And I think the Europeans have given indication, and that is why they are trying to put pressure on the Americans to not concede ground to the Russians and to force the Russians to vacate land. And that is something I don't think is going to happen. The Russians are not going to vacate the land unless and Crimea, of course, is has to be given up completely. There is no question of vacating
no
Crimea.
question on Crimea. Absolutely.
Yes. So the only thing is that if the Europeans and the Americans concede that Ukraine will not be a part of NATO now, in future, ever. That is the only bargaining chip that President Zelensky can perhaps use. Whether the Americans and the Europeans will allow him to do that remains to be seen.
All right, and while that happened, India is still living in uncertainty over its exports to the US. Major General Rajan Kochar, before I let you go, I think we're looking at a dramatic shift in India-US ties, and where India-US ties becoming a collateral damage to what Trump wants with Russia or what he wants with Ukraine vis-a-vis peace in Europe. Are we looking at shifts perhaps that will go away as Donald Trump sets aside or steps down or when his tenure is over, or these changes are permanent in nature?
Shweta, as I see the Indian-US friendship, you have to go back 15, 20 years. Look at the hard work which has gone into make this friendship stronger by the day. You have the Compact, you have the Indus, you have the COMCOSA, you have the LUMOI, you have a number of agreements, you have the ISET, and it's in the areas of technology, defense, energy, and a host of other areas also. This friendship is there to stay, and I don't think one man can destroy it completely. It can be a setback, maybe, as you rightly said, that, till Trump realizes that what he's doing to India, he will cause more harm to America than India, because India has the resilience. We can always shift our supply chain basis. We have already started with that. And we can manage to a certain extent without America. There would be almost 0.6% drop in our GDP as per the economic experts I was reading. So we can absorb those kind of shocks. But what will happen to America, because India is not the only country which Donald Trump is targeting. He is targeting a number of other countries. It's going to hurt the American economy a lot. Already there is no manufacturing in America. Only 11% of the manufacturing contributes to the GDP of America. And all this labor intensive jobs where India was predominant as far as exports were concerned in terms of pharmaceuticals, textiles, automobile parts and all, are, where is the alternative?
Right.
Does President Trump go to China? Because China is the only alternative. Vietnam is another alternative. He has got very limited alternatives as far as my assessment of this thing is concerned. And he is bound to review his policies now, because it's going to not make America great again. It will make America weak again.